On today's episode, I have former students Matt and Janet not only sharing their birth story, but Matt shares his vulnerability as he talks about something that we discussed in class, but he didn't give it much thought or preparation until it happened to him. Something that both of you should know ahead of time, and why I encourage parents to find a therapist and get on their schedule during pregnancy because you have more time to find someone. Having to find a therapist and go through insurance numbers and find someone that's available when you're sleep deprived and in the thick of postpartum is extra stress and overwhelm that can be relieved by just doing this ahead of time. You never know if you're going to need that extra help, and this is just a backup plan for you and your family in case it's needed. Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. Right now, I want to welcome Matt and Janet, who took my class, I want to say July of last year. And now their baby is like 5 months old. We had an amazing class that session. I mean, we always have amazing classes. I love my students. But Matt and Janet had a few things in their lives and pre-birth story stuff that has stuck out to me over time. And so I really wanted to get them on today for their birth story. And I'm going to let you guys tell me kind of what you came into birth with. We talk a lot about fears and we're very upfront with that. And also a lot of parents choose not to get education because they think it'll give them more fear. And so I kind of want to know what families are coming in with when it comes to birth, and then how they prepare. Did they read books? Did they watch podcasts? Did they do nothing because they were scared and they were waiting for it all to come into class? So what did you guys do to get ready?
I associated birth with just pain, and I was so afraid of it. A good friend of mine actually referred us to taking the hypnobirthing class. And I was like, okay, I'll give this a chance. And it completely just changed my outlook and my outview of what birthing is. Instead of associating it with pain, it became my daughter's story into the real world. And as soon as I made that connection, the emotions that I had towards pregnancy and leading up to the day, it was magical.
I got goosebumps because it is your baby's story. And we do associate it with such negative things. And it can be the most powerful life experience for the three of you ever.
Yeah.
So what about you, Matt? What did you come in with?
Yeah, I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. So I was starting at the ground level. You know, like I mentioned too, I'm in recovery from addiction. And so just learning how to take care of myself finally a few years ago. Now, all of a sudden, I was getting prepared to bring this child into the world. And I needed all the help I could get for sure. So when she mentioned the hypnobirthing, obviously I had no idea what it was at first, but I was on board because I knew nothing and that I needed to learn and to sit down and to listen to someone because they know what they're talking about and I do not, And she told me, it was going to be this amount of time and this many hours. And I said, hey, I'm on board for it,
15 hours of birth class talking about vaginas and seeing videos.
It was a lot. And honestly, all I could think of before we went into it was how I had to watch The Miracle of Birth when I was in 7th or 8th grade. And it was completely traumatizing. It looked like a war zone. And, and now there was beauty in it through videos and learning. And I liked that how you broke it down because I went into it and seeing these videos and they were challenging and it looked like a real process. And then you explained how beautiful it was and how the process was so important for us and for the unborn child and just bringing this new life into the world. It made it a beautiful experience versus this thing you're just trying to get through.
Because birth is super challenging, but it can also be so sexy and so connected and so real as an experience when you're not avoiding it, but you surrender to it and walk head first into it. I think that's my favorite transformation is when parents come into class nervous and anxious about the whole thing. And then by class 5, they are ready to catch their baby, excited for labor, and have an open dialogue of communication. So I'm excited. So tell me, did you do anything else to prepare for the birth other than take class?
I just did my own research on Google, listening to my friends' birth stories and reading other birth stories online and kind of just making it my own. Now I try to stay away from Google, but
yeah. Don't we all?
Yeah, she was sending me a ton of things that I was reading. And I mean, I was already learning about month 6, 25 days before my daughter was born, so.
I just tried to be as prepared as possible, but also with an open mind that it might not go my way as well.
Absolutely. Because birth is your baby's story.
Yeah.
They are the crapshoot, right? You can prepare all you want, but you have to go with the flow at the time, moment by moment.
I also learned the most too, like aside from your class, I learned the most from going to every single one of her appointments. I went to every single appointment. I was there to listen and to understand. And so that helped a lot too, learning the process of what that baby's going through from, day 1 and then up until 9 months later.
It is fresh scratch for everybody. And I think that's what's so intimidating, because it has been painted such a medical event, and that we don't know anything compared to the white coat. And we do know our bodies best, and we do know our relationship best. And that's the kind of relationship and teamwork we're trying to build with our providers and each other as we welcome these yummy babies in.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, tell me about your birth story. Start from wherever you want to start.
We'll start from your class. So when we started taking your class in July, me and Matt decided that we wanted to get a doula. And we were interviewing a bunch of doulas, and we landed on a preferred one that was on your website, Jennifer Cole. Love her. Interviewed her, and she's a godsend. She was amazing.
She's amazing.
She was great.
We got to meet with her twice before the birth. And the week leading up to my due date, she came over and she brought over a TENS unit for me to utilize just in case I wanted to use it or not. So I guess I'll head into the week of the birth. That Monday, we went and saw my OB, and she's in San Marcos. She's one of the best OBs in Kaiser. So I was like, I will travel to San Marcos to see you. And I ended up asking for a membrane sweep because I'm like, I am 39 weeks and I want this over with. I know, baby. And I'm talking to the baby like, I need you to come out on your own terms, but we're going to get this moving. Ended up with Braxton Hicks starting Wednesday. And they were pretty much spaced apart. We were thinking that I was going to go into labor that weekend on her due date, which was November 11th, but nothing really happened. So that weekend, we actually did a bunch of hikes, 9 months pregnant, going through mission trails, hiking, walking to Santee, walking back to the other side. Nothing worked. And then we saw my OB again the following Monday, did another membrane sweep. We scheduled my induction date, which I was like, I don't want to be inducted, but we'll schedule this anyways. And they had me do a COVID test and did that. We were about 5-10 yards away from the car, and no joke, contractions just started. 3 p.m.
Each one was 4 to 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and we were
trying to talk to
6.
me throughout the car ride. And I'm like, I can't even focus on you right now. So we got in the car and then drove home, and I just nuzzled up in bed with my dogs. And then Jennifer ended up coming over around 6:30 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up going to the hospital around 8. I was in triage. The nurse took my temperature, and I had 103 fever.
You can't plan on those things, right?
No.
I was waiting out in the lobby while she went in. And then finally, Jennifer and I got to go in, and they informed me that she had a 103 fever. And I was just like, what is going on? Because we were completely healthy for all through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then this.
And I was completely healthy throughout my pregnancy. I was cycling until 38 weeks and walking, and just no medicine, no anything throughout my entire pregnancy. And so this happens, of course, the night of labor.
And was it COVID?
It was COVID. It ended up being COVID.
Oh my gosh, that darn virus.
And it was my fault.
Well, at least we can blame it on you. That's good.
Totally take the blame. Mm-hmm.
And baby's heart rate went up a little bit.
It went up to 200
beats per minute. And as soon as I got the Tylenol, though, the liquid Tylenol, it subsided and everything they just had to monitor me. And I was afraid that Jennifer and Matt wouldn't be able, because you hear these horror stories during the pandemic about husbands and, family members not being able to be in the room.
As soon as I found out she had COVID, I went up to the nurse and I said, hey, what's the deal with this? I need to be in there. How do we do this? And she said, oh, yeah, you're fine. We'll wear different suits and protective gear, but you can stay in.
Yeah. And your doula's been exposed. So why would we keep her out? Like, everybody can go in now.
When she found that out, I was like, man, she does not look thrilled right now. But she was there. She didn't.
Because in her mind, she's thinking, how many other births am I going to miss if I do get this? Because now I've been exposed, right? Yeah. As birth workers, we're thinking of our tribe all the time. We're like, okay, in this moment, we're going to be at this birth, but what else?
Yeah.
And you cannot predict it.
Looking back at it now, I just laugh. I mean, it makes for a great birth story.
It sure does.
Yeah. So after that, we got into our room, and now these contractions are still 4 to 5 minutes apart. And man, it's a mental marathon. I was yelling at myself in my head. I don't know what I looked like on the outside, but I was just like, Janet, you got this. You got a minute of this. And instead of imagining myself on the beach, I imagined myself climbing a mountain. And as soon as I hit the peak, I'd tell myself, all right, you're descending. You've made it. Like, hold out for 30 more seconds. You got this.
I know that minute timeline works so well, doesn't it? Oh, so good.
And I was using the TENS unit as well. So every time I had a contraction, I hit that boost button and it would take my mind off of the contractions and onto the electrodes that were shocking me. And it was amazing.
I'm into electric shock rather than contractions. That's what I'm into. Whatever gets you through it.
Yeah. And I knew that I didn't want an epidural. Actually, I just didn't want it. And especially like my mom, she's from Cambodia. She had 5 kids out in the jungle, no epidural, no nurses or doctors, just my dad at hand and her tribe. And so what am I doing here in the States? Like, if she can do it out there in the jungle, I can absolutely not get an epidural and have this baby naturally as well.
I think when you said that in class, there was an audible, like, oh my gosh, because when we come into birth, we have inheritance. My mom's birth story was horrible and her mom's before that. And so we're coming in with that extra fear besides what happened to our sisters and friends. And then you came in with, my mom had 5 babies in the jungle.
Yeah.
And, no one around. My dad was helping. And it's like your inheritance was, it's in my genes to do this. And that's also a fantastic inheritance. And I think it gave hope to other people in class because they were like, wow, like people actually birth like that. I'm like, yeah, all over the world.
Absolutely. And my birth story was the doctor wasn't even in the room when my mom gave birth to me. My dad and the nurse caught me, which is funny. And we'll get into that at the end of my birth story. So I think it was 3 a.m. when Jennifer went to her car to take a quick nap. Matt was in the corner taking a quick nap. And I'm just like pushing through, trying to nap in between contractions. And it turns out that I was regressing. So I was going backwards in how far apart my contractions were. So they gave me a tiny bit of Pitocin and my water broke around 4:30 in the morning. And at this point, my contractions were just...
We gave you the nitric oxide.
Yeah. We requested nitrous oxide.
Nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
And it helped so much just to take that tiny edge off. But those contractions, man.
After the water breaks, it is pressure and we're moving forward.
Yeah. It's like a gnarly Charlie horse in your stomach for, I don't know how long I was in labor for.
Yeah. And I was surprised at how quiet she was because in a lot of the videos and from what I've heard, it's very loud experience. And she was not very loud. It was just the moaning, deep, like you said, primal.
Yeah.
One of the best coping techniques you can do is let that pressure out through those low guttural.
Right.
Yeah.
It definitely worked. And then it's light outside. I remember that. Jennifer went to go get coffee. So they were switching back and forth. So Jennifer went to go get coffee and then she came back and then Matt went to go down to get food, eggs and bacon, of course. And it's about 8:30 or so.
It had been like 15 and a half hours. So I was like, I'm sure I still got more time.
And Matt's in the corner eating. No surprise there. And I asked the nurse if I was crowning. As my contractions were getting stronger, I didn't know what that feeling was. So the feeling went back in. And I just kept asking the nurse, like, am I crowning? And she's like, no, you're not crowning. You're at a station 0. Like, we still have time. So I looked over at Jennifer and I'm like, Jennifer, if I feel pushy, can I push? And she's like, do whatever you need to do. And I just let this primal scream out, one push. Here comes Reese out.
So I saw that Jennifer was really next to her taking action. So obviously I put the food down. I set up my camera. I set up my iPhone.
Good job, Dad.
I got the whole birth on film. I got the entire thing on film. So thank you very much. Yes, I was eating, but I was there. And so I set the phone up. She pushed. The baby came out. The staff wasn't even in there. Well, only one nurse, and then me. So I didn't actually catch it. But as soon as the baby was out, the nurse had it. And then my hands were right there. And then she instantly did her thing, which our staff was amazing in there. It was a quick suction, rough, and then right on Janet. It all happened so fast.
It was the best birth story that I could ever imagine. And that's exactly what I imagined. Just quick and easy.
Like one push. It's interesting to me that you say quick and easy. Matt just said it had been 15 hours.
So the total was 17 hours, but when it was finally about to happen, it happened.
Is that how your mom birthed? Did she have labor and then bam, baby was out?
Yep, that's how I was. She walked laps around the hospital, got into bed, and just came out. And then nurse is like trying to call the doctor. The doctor was upset that he wasn't, because my mom had me when she was 45. And so the doctor was upset that he wasn't there to catch me. Because they've been to so much over the last 9 months.
And he wanted to get paid. And it doesn't really matter. She's already had 4 kids. And you were the first one in the hospital.
Yeah.
So she knew what she was doing.
First American born.
Yep.
Wow. And then you did the exact same thing. So magical. What did that feel like?
I cut the cord.
It was
very present. It was a lot. It was a lot for me. I was definitely anxious. I had butterflies. It was intense. Before I went in there, I was like, I might pass out during this thing. But I was good. It was just, I just followed the lead of the nurses. The staff was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that moment when she just lays on top of you, it's a feeling that I'll never forget.
It's the biggest high you will get on the planet is when that baby comes out and hits your chest.
Oh, yeah. And I'm so glad I didn't do the epidural because I got up, walked, went to the bathroom. Right away, I was able to walk and hold her, and I was just fully present and aware of what was going on. And to be able to remember every single detail of those 17 hours, amazing.
Fantastic. And you had the coping techniques. I think that is one of the things that as women, when we're pregnant, we're just thinking, I can't do it. I'm a pain wuss.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of the needle, right? There's so many things that we stack up, but we don't realize that our bodies make exactly what we need for painkiller. And when we trust the process, trust our bodies, and have a good support team, we move through it. And it obviously, we need to learn those skills because we haven't been taught them in tribes and in community and villages now. But wow, what are we capable of?
It was a mental marathon, but I do it all over again, 100%.
Yeah, I always say that in class. Like, I'd birth all of your babies. I have no interest in raising them because that's the hard part. But I would birth in every class that I teach. I would birth all of your babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And Matt, we had several discussions on, do I need a doula? Do I want a doula? Do I want to spend money on a doula? I don't know. It's kind of a waste of money. And I was like, on the outside, I've never had a dad tell me it was waste of money. So what was it like having the doula and also supporting Janet?
The doula was one of the best decisions we made. So it's expensive, especially to get one with Jennifer's experience. It's not cheap, but it was absolutely worth it. Yes, I did learn a lot going up to it, but I still needed her help in there, us being able to transition back and forth and be there for her while still, trying to keep our sanity. And because everybody's tired, obviously she's going through it the most, but having the doula there was really helpful. We didn't have any staff in there that were pressuring us. They all understood Janet's birth plan. They all respected it. They were very respectful to us. And so I didn't need any backup with our doula, but she knew kind of what Janet needed when she needed it. And it was really nice because I'm a man. I don't know how that feels, any of that. And our doula has been through this. She has kids. So she knows obviously better than I do by default, so It was good. I mean, it was a really good experience. I'm glad that I was there for all of it, kind of got to catch the baby, got to cut the cord, take the baby, put the baby on the scale, and just be there for the very beginning stages of all of it. It was really cool. And then, getting over to the maternity ward and all that, it was an amazing experience.
Do you think that part of Reese's birth story healed parts of you with the birth with your mom? I remember when we talked about everybody's birth stories, like how they came into the world, what their relationship was like with their families. And just listening to you, what you're saying now, it feels like it was very healing for you to be hands on deck with Reese right from the beginning.
Yes. And so I was adopted. I don't know my birth mother. I only know, my mother and father now, who are amazing, still married, great parents, love her. So I actually don't know anybody in my bloodline. So having Reese was the first of everything. My firstborn child, my first offspring of my bloodline. She was just so much of a first for me. And so it was really special. I didn't want to miss a moment, and I didn't miss a moment. And you mentioned the labor too, and like going through and watching the contractions and being in the bedroom and being with the doula and like just, I was really on my game when I needed to be on my game. I think it kind of just clicks in as a man when she needs me at my best right now. I need to be at my best. And I was able to give that to her throughout that experience. And I'm very happy because I was nervous at first. Like I mentioned, there was a level of anxiety for sure.
Which is normal for every partner, right?
Like you've said, and like she said, I would do it again. 100%. And we will do it again.
Yeah.
Well, and my oldest daughter was adopted too. And she's 26. She's not having babies right now or anything. But adoption stories always get me because I love that kid more than life itself. And she was supposed to be my firstborn after 6 miscarriages. And she came right at the right time. And she is my bloodline. So from an adoptive parent point of view, I'm not going to speak for your mom, but I'm going to speak for your mom. You are hers in every sense of the word.
Okay. And it's funny that you say that. Let me give you a quick little funny story. I was telling my mom and my dad how our daughter Reese was in the 99th percentile for height. She's very tall.
And we're very short.
So it made no sense. But my mom said, oh, well, she must have gotten that maybe from, your grandpa or Austin.
Which is his brother.
Which is my brother. And I said, Mom, I'm adopted. Like, they're not my bloodline. That would be physically impossible for her to get any traits from them. And she was like, oh my God, I totally forgot. And so I get what you mean. It's, you are my child. That is it. And she said that too. My dad was laughing at her, but my mom was like, well, that just goes to show you how I view it. I totally forgot that you were born from someone else,
Yeah. I still see Angie and her, she came to us when she was 5, almost 6. So I still see her in light up Skechers and sparkle jeans because, I didn't see her as a baby. And so I still have that image and I'm like, she's an adult. You need to start treating her like, she wears
Right.
Lululemon now, Care. Like it's different. She's an adult.
Yeah.
But I totally get that. Matt, do you think there's anything in class that you spontaneously brought back into the birth or you felt so prepared with? Because not only just birth stories and vagina videos and endless amounts of commentary on all those births, but you are so overloaded with information by the end. And what I always say is you'll remember what you need to know in the moment. Just take it in right now and trust the process.
Right. I would say one of the biggest things was early on was knowing how to, we had practiced in class kind of massaging certain areas. I was practicing massaging certain areas of Janet to help with her pregnancy and help, kind of set her at ease and stuff. And we practiced a lot of that. And that helped during the beginning stages. And I would say one of the things that definitely helped me when we were in the room was being up next to her, talking to her and vocalizing to her and reminding her, go to your place. Remember, I was on the beach in San Diego. That was my place. I think that might have been your place too. Yeah. And so reminding her of these things that we talked about, getting your mind off, but also keeping your mind on, and staying focused. And that really helped for sure.
It definitely is a team sport.
But there was so many things we learned in class. I can't even remember all of it, but those were a couple things that stood out to me that I was able to, they came like that.
And Janet, what are some points in your labor that you really remember? Because it is such a mind marathon. And there are some times where you're just like, I can't. And you have to switch that mindset to I am doing.
Yep. It was the breathing. So as the onset of the contractions coming on, I just had to get in the zone. I just knew it. I had to get in the zone, tell myself I can do it. I was calling myself names. It was a whole thing. I wish I was able to vocalize what I was actually saying to myself in my head.
Yeah, but we are talking ourselves into the process because it's okay. One more. I've got one more. And I remember saying 1 minute, I can do anything for a minute. I can do anything. And then it was over.
It was a lot of breathing deep down into the gut of my stomach, breathing. And that just relieved a lot of the pain.
That's literally all you can control in labor. Is your breath. You can't control what the baby's doing. You can't control what the nurses are saying. You can't control that your husband's in the corner eating food and getting ready to set up his camera and catch it all on film, which hands down, Matt, great job on that one.
Yeah.
Great job on that one. Well, as we wrap up, I can preach postpartum is challenging and prepare for postpartum all you want in class. I try and get them to take classes. I try and get them whatever. And everybody is so focused on the birth and labor, and they think, I have family support. I'll be fine. So as we go into some advice for the parents that are coming after you and generations coming after you, what is your best advice for preparing for postpartum, either that you did or that you would say, oh my gosh, you have no idea, please do this?
For all my breastfeeding mamas out there, take a breastfeeding class. Take a breastfeeding class. Get yourself familiar with it. I did not take it, and I regret it 100%. Reese ended up having a tongue tie, and I didn't even realize it until week 5. And that's why she wasn't gaining any weight. And my body went through the ringer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is rough because you're not getting sleep on top of that.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
It was a rough 8 weeks.
Yeah, because then you're figuring everything out once you figure it out.
Yeah. And nothing can prepare you for the 4th trimester. No matter how much support you think you're going to have or how strong you are, nothing prepares you for it. But just keep an open mind, and it's only for the moment. It will pass.
You can say that now that you're 5 months out, right?
Yes.
Now it's just a series of ups and downs and we get through it. But those first couple months are tough.
Very.
What about you, Matt? What advice would you give?
The best advice I would give is that the number one thing to do right away is get the baby on a schedule. Obviously there's things that are going to be outside of our control, but trying to get a baby on the schedule was something that we started in the beginning, and it has just been so helpful. And also to the fathers out there, make sure that, obviously the first thing on our mind is to take care of the baby and all that, but she's breastfeeding 100%. I need to make sure she's good. I need to make sure that she is fed. I need to make sure that she's reminded that she's doing a great job. I need her to remember that, we're going to get through this and I'm going to be here. And I need to make sure that she's good. So she's flowing and which in turn is for the baby. So, it was challenging at first because for the fathers out there, your schedule is going to change. And that was hard for me, less gym time, moving things around, and making it a priority and things are different, and honestly, I underestimated how much work it was going to be. So I just want to tell you guys out there, it's a lot of work and it's 24/7, things that aggravate me in my life, I can push them aside and not deal with it. That's not an option for this. This is 24/7 hands-on. So I would say also just remember that each day is going to be different than the one prior. If she slept good the night before, she might be terrible tonight. So just be prepared. It's not going to happen in days in a row. It's going to change every single day. So
it is so on the fly, and baby did great for 3 days. And then there's this sleep regression, or there's always something that you're just like, what are we doing wrong? I can't do this. Why did we sign up for this? Who told us kids were a good idea? You go through all of those questions 10 million times. And the reason I understand postpartum so well is because I have a severely handicapped child. I just changed a dirty diaper before, and she's 15 before I talk to you. It is some nights she sleeps, some nights she doesn't. So I feel it on such a visceral level because I'm still living it, that I want people to prepare as much as possible, even though it is day to day, moment by moment.
Yep.
And have a good tribe behind you too. Take the help. If someone wants to come over and hold your baby for an hour, let them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so important. It's so important. And Matt, how has your work life gotten back to normal now with schedules and all that kind of stuff?
So I went back to work 2 weeks after she was born. I was able to apply for the paid family leave. So I have 8 weeks to take off for child connection within a year period, which I've taken 4 so far. But yeah, I went right back to work, and I was also able to negotiate more working from home. So I'm actually only in the office for like 5 hours on a Wednesday. The other time I'm from home and I'm able to help her more. And honestly, in the beginning, it was really hard for me to get adjusted. Like, I didn't really talk about it that much, but I went through like some depression, and still I'm just getting over it, because all of a sudden she's so focused on baby. I'm not getting attention. I feel unloved. What happened? You know what I mean? Where's my wife? That's how I felt. All of a sudden the intimacy's down. She doesn't want it. You know what I mean? That was great advice that you gave that I didn't take up as much as I should have, was to be with her, spend the time, make love more in the beginning, before.
And that is one of the reasons that as soon as a mom or dad calls me, we're 3 months along, we're due in September or whatever, it is that connection, the intimacy, the sexual touch, the cuddling, whatever each other's love languages are. If you build that during the pregnancy, because there is such a span afterwards of no contact. She's touched out. There's a baby on that boob and she doesn't want anything to do with it. And her hormones are all over the place. And partners do feel left out. And they're like, whoa, what happened? And everyone at work saying, you're never going to have sex again.
Exactly.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And people don't understand that partners can get postpartum depression, just like the birthing person. Exactly like that. And it is a tricky thing to manage if you aren't aware that it can happen, which I would love for people to have a more open dialogue about that, which is why I want them to take classes.
I underestimated how much work it would be, and I underestimated the changes that she would go through, which would affect me.
Absolutely. And it's figuring out, when do we have 15 minutes where we can just be by ourselves? Or how do we touch each other without any expectation? Because I really want to be with you, but not right now.
Right.
But understanding that a cuddle means just a cuddle sometimes. And that's it. Don't touch my boob, or whatever. Like, it has to be that open dialogue in order to get through it. So awesome. I'm glad I asked about that, dude, because that is so real. And so many dads don't talk about it.
Yeah, it really is. And not only watching him go through it, but now I have to take care of a child, take care of my mental health, and take care of his mental health at the same time.
Yep. And I always encourage a therapist, because we never know who's going to need it.
Yeah.
In order to save our relationships, that's number one.
Right.
The relationship is number one, because it's not going to last like this for 8 years.
Right. I am a firm believer in therapists, and we actually just started therapy again, and we had done couples therapy prior, once I was getting out of my addiction and stuff like that, we did couples therapy, and now we're entering it again. It's so helpful. It's so helpful to have that outside, non-biased person to be like, that makes sense and that doesn't make sense. It's key, because sometimes we go so wrapped up in what the other person is doing right or wrong, and you need that outside perspective. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I don't know how I'll ever not be in therapy.
I love therapy.
I love therapy. Love therapy. My poor daughter is like, I have to be in therapy forever. That's just what it is. Like, you want me to be in therapy, I make more apologies to you when I'm in therapy.
Yeah.
Just saying. Well, I am so thrilled that your baby is 5 months old and she's thriving, and that she's sleeping through the night right now, which is fantastic. I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, you.
Care.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.